In this session, we're going to look at the topic of predictive analytics, insights at scale. Now, this is almost like having a crystal ball in marketing and being able to look forward into the future, look backwards and see what happened and be predictive. Actually looking at things from a very, very different perspective rather than just analyzing data. This is actually doing stuff at scale that's going to really inform your decision making. So this is a topic I'm really excited to explore in a lot more detail. And these are very early days, to be fair, in the topic of predictive analytics because AI is emerging, AI is evolving to enable this for us. So insights at scale, what do we actually mean here? Well, this is in essence turning data into actionable foresight with AI-powered predictive models. So using AI tools and using those tools in a way that gives us an ability to almost project into the future the likely outcome of our campaigns, our marketing plans, and our strategies. So what we're going to look at in this session is predictive analytics. We're going to look at the models, the methods, and some of the tools that will enable you to transform raw data into foresight. So you're going to be able to look through these tools and turn the information into real intelligence with not just a prediction, but actually the very much the likely outcome of your actions and your behaviors and your decisions. Super exciting stuff. So we're going to have a look at some real world applications. We'll look at a few frameworks and certainly so that you can put this into practice, some platforms that are going to help you to anticipate behavior, optimize your campaigns, and really importantly for me, allocate your resources, your time, your budget, and anybody who's working with you more effectively. And that to me is really important here. There's a lot of I could do in this topic, but I want this to be what you must do. So enabling you to really prioritize your steps going forward. So I've used a few kind of jargony, cliche type phrases, so we need to kind of break those down. So predictive analytics, what actually is predictive analytics? Well, it's using historical data, statistical algorithms, and AI, machine learning, to forecast future outcomes. So it looks back at what you've done before. It kind of then works from what it knows to be, best practice in essence. It looks at the statistical probability of something occurring rather than something not occurring. And then what it does is it forecasts the likely scenario that's going to play out. So if you've got a campaign, you've got historical campaigns, probably. If you've got a statistical algorithm running there that sort of predicts actually the likelihood of this thing succeeding, and then you've got some AI powered enablement inside this, then you can forecast with pretty high accuracy and a lot of confidence the likely outcome that's going to happen. So this is going to move us from reactive reporting to proactive foresight. So when you're in a meeting, when you're producing a dashboard and somebody says, well, what's the likely outcome of this thing? We're going to be spending this budget. What's likely to happen? You're going to be very able to confidently demonstrate with evidence the likely outcome. Now just think of the confidence level, not just for you, but the organization. And Gartner, in a lot of research that it's doing on this topic, defines predictive analytics as a key pillar of data-driven marketing maturity. This really will change where your bar is set in your marketing activities going forward. So why this matters for marketing at the moment is because we're finding it actually really chaotic, a bit noisy, and really hard to see the wood from the trees. So what we're looking to do here is to do things like anticipating customer behavior. I mean, if we can really predict with a high level of accuracy what is likely to happen when we do something in marketing, we might then be able to reduce churn, we might be able to increase purchases, and certainly look and attend to the lifetime value we get from the customer, and also, in essence, what they get from us too. So it is going to improve efficiency of our spend, our targeting, and our efforts and priorities. And it's going to reduce our reliance typically on sort of intuition only decision making, where somebody says, oh, I feel that's the right way to go, or, well, we've always done it that way, so I think that's how we'll continue. Predictive analytics enables you to make turns, pivot, and actually, basically, change fundamentally things that you do. Forrester's report recently says that 91% of top performing marketers say predictive analytics is critical to their strategy. So, if you enable this, if you start to buy into this concept of this kind of future thinking, this foresight, then you will be amongst the top performing marketers on the planet, according to these statistics. So there are some theories and models which we can't ignore really here because we need to put a little bit of science behind the practicality. We'll come on to the practicality and the platforms in a short while. But from a theoretical and framework perspective, there are a number of models at play here. So one particularly is the analytics maturity model. And this is descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. What happened? Why did it happen? What will happen? And what should we do about it? And interestingly, marketers are increasingly moving into stages 3 and 4, the what will happen, the predicted bit, and 4, what we should we do about it with AI support. And that's exciting because 5, 6 years ago, and certainly before that as well, we never had this opportunity. We were kind of winging it, really. And I would say that a lot of us were trying very hard back in the day to kind of make, good efforts and good attempts at this. But now we have this predictive analytics, this insights at scale, AI powered to enable this stuff to be done with confidence and with accuracy. So we are now going to be able to see what will happen if we do object X or campaign Y, and then what we should do about the answer that we see. That's exciting. So we're not just going to do something, see what happened, and then just report on that. We're going to be looking into the future. So, key predictive models for marketers typically come out of statistics and economics. We've got regression models, we've got classification models, we've got clustering models, we've got time series forecasting. If you want to go deep into this, there are many, many models that have been proven over the years, I mean, over decades, literally. And these are relevant and they are interesting. But what we're doing now is we're really streamlining the opportunity. What we're seeing now is the ability to be using AI platforms, AI enabled tools in our overall overarching customer journey. So we're at the prospecting and lead scoring stage, for example. We're going to be able to now, with AI, predict which leads are most likely to convert. So in marketing, obviously, lead generation is one of our tasks. It's, warming up the marketplace so that sales can come in and, do their work and close the deal. And so prospecting and lead scoring at a high level of accuracy so we can see alignment with the target audience and what we do is critical. It really is important. And predicting which of those leads coming in are most likely to convert enables us to focus our resources, time, and energy on those individuals. So HubSpot's predictive lead scoring tool or Salesforce's Einstein are good tools then to go and research here. And you will see significant reduction in your sales cycles by using predictive scoring, for example. And so this is important that at every level of the customer journey, we're able to see value in predictive analytics. So at the customer acquisition stage, a little bit deeper into the customer journey or into the sales funnel, you're going to be able to use predictive analytics to identify lookalike audiences. You probably heard that if you've done any kind of social media advertising, for example, lookalike audiences, those that are very similar or answer to the same description as people you're already engaged with. If you can identify who they are, you have a much higher conversion probability with those people because they're already aligned with people just like them who you're already serving as customers. So Cognism, LeadSpace, and Sixth Sense are good tools to go and explore for those opportunities there at the customer acquisition stage. And again, a lot of the research coming through, Deloitte have done some work here and say that B2B campaigns with predictive modeling like this can increase ROI by a quarter, over a quarter, 27% improvement. That's a recent study that Deloitte did. So this is serious stuff. I mean, if you're targeted, particularly if you're doing campaigns into really, really crowded markets, or you're looking to cut through the noise, predictive analytics enables you to be doing the stuff that's going to give you the best return, and with confidence and with evidence. This is powerful, powerful stuff. and deeper into the customer journey, where most people don't really think of predictive analytics. A lot of people think of this as being something that comes at the front end of the journey, when you're building awareness and hooking people in for the first time, but deeper into the journey at the customer retention stage. So you already have these customers, you're building the loyalty and advocacy with them. And it enables you, predictive analytics enables you to predict churn. When is the most likely time that a particular customer is likely to then go off and seek support from a competitor, for example, or who is most likely at risk and when of leaving based on their engagement patterns? So if you can see that a certain customer uses your product or service for a set period of time, and then they start to kind of wane, their interest kind of goes. Predictive analytics, these insights at scale will enable you to nip that in the bud, get back in contact with that customer in a timely way, and save that relationship. Imagine that. If you can save relationships because you can see in advance when that relationship is likely to wane, you think about the reduction in churn, those people leaving, maybe even in waves, and that's going to really damage your reputation as well as your sales. So being able to retain those engagement patterns through services like Peak and AI, SES, Customer Intelligence 360, again, tools that you can go and research to find out how to use predictive analytics at each of these stages of the customer journey. It becomes really powerful. You're almost going to be introducing stuff into your organization that is going to feel like magic. It's going to feel like, well, how on earth did you know that? How did you know that customer was about to leave? How did you know that that lead was better than the others over there? And yeah, we got a load of business from that organization or that person. How did you know that? You'll know it's because of your predictive analytics. And you're going to see this as well in the customer journey at sort of the product recommendation stage, for example. A lot of this is already in play. You do see, obviously, organizations like Amazon is the obvious example where, it knows your behavioral patterns. It knows everything about what you have done in the past, and it will be serving you with product recommendations, predicting what you are most likely to buy next based on your behaviors. So Amazon Personalize or Recombi is another one. You are going to see uplifts in your basket size. So that's basically the transactional potential that you have if you're an e-commerce brand. But for the rest of us, even if we're not an e-commerce brand, can you imagine actually knowing that if customer A buys product X and Y, they're very likely to buy product Z as well at the same time if we do certain behavior or if we serve them with a certain message. To know that in advance with confidence because you have the data, because your AI has predicted this, can enable you to, well, hyper personalize. By the way, this is how you do hyper personalization. It's in this predictive approach, but also then with confidence engage with them at that hyper personalized level. And that is the difference between marketers and brands who are just pushing messages out and just hoping, and others who are actually engaging on a one-to-one level because they know what the customer's going to do next. They know what the customer's needs are because they can predict how that customer's going to behave and act once they get into that relationship. Super exciting stuff. This AI powered enablement of insights at scale just gives you so many decisions that you can make and enables you to optimize your campaigns. I mean, ultimately, a lot of us in marketing are running campaigns. We're promoting stuff, we're introducing things, we're encouraging behavior change in our customers and in our audiences. So if you can predict which content, what timing, and which channels drive the highest ROI in real time, don't forget that bit. Predictive analytics, these insights at scale enable you to switch things, tune things in real time because you can predict what's going to happen. It enables you to optimize and drive the highest ROI at every single point in the journey. Super exciting, really powerful. And almost when you kind of open this box, it's almost like you can't unknow it, that there's this opportunity in there. I mean, imagine, if you're a predictive email optimization activity that you're doing, I mean, you could be boosting open rates, say if you're a retail brand by maybe even a third. That would be just incredible by knowing the timing, knowing the content, and knowing the channels through which you're going to promote. You just think of the accuracy with which you're going to be doing your marketing going forward, and particularly at a campaign level, these little incremental improvements by having a little piece of information that turns into intelligence because you're listening. These tools are going to feed you with these little moments of choice. You make the choice, you make the change, and you see the improvement. So little incremental improvements is what this is all about. So, what kind of data are you going to need to be thinking about if you want to do this predictive analytics, this kind of crystal ball marketing, predicting using AI what's going to happen in the future? Well, you obviously will need some form of transactional data. So, you'll need to be gathering what happened before with our customers in the process that we take them through. So, if you've got a little process for how they engage with you, so you've plotted your customer journey in essence, but also if you're actually doing, say, online transactions, if you know that transactional data, where people drop out of the journey or the sales funnel, where they engage and click certain buttons, if you know all of that stuff, you're well set. So that's transactional data. You also need behavioral data. Some of this is less kind of about the numbers and more about the activity and the behavior. So that might apply on a website, it could be in an app, it will certainly be in your socials. That kind of interaction and the way people behave when you serve them with certain things. Just really take some quality time to reflect on how do we impact our customers and our audiences? Can we gather that data and really understand what's going on through all the channels that we use? Because if you can gather that, it doesn't have to be a perfect data set, but if you can just gather some ideas, you've got something to feed into your AI. Demographic data and obviously persona creation is key. If you don't know your personas, that's a whole exercise further upstream. But knowing who you are targeting at an intimate level is absolutely key. And some of the sentiment and qualitative inputs that you can put in here. How are your customers actually feeling right now? Do you do customer satisfaction surveys? Have you got actually how satisfied your customers are? How are they feeling when you serve them with certain things? Are you solving their stuff? How do they perceive what you do? Again, there could be some gaps in that data. That's okay. If you've got something that you can play with, at least you're off the starting blocks, but making sure, of course, all the stuff that you're collecting in your data, that you don't go too far and too fast, because obviously things like GDPR and all of the other kind of policies that are and regulations that are guiding us as marketing and marketers still apply. So even if you see some gaps, be careful how you collect that extra data. But if you've got something to play with, you've got something to put into your AI. And of course, the predictive models that you're going to be using, so some of these tools that we'll come on to in a minute, maybe ChatGPT as well, if you're, or Copilot, if you've already got these embedded into your workflows at the moment, it is all about obviously the data quality. They're only going to be, I say the predictive models, whatever you choose, the platforms, are only going to be as good as the data that you put in, or the data that you're using, or the questions or the prompts that you are prompting and having conversations with through them. So maybe it's about time to really refresh your data. I mean, go back to the data quality and think about reducing or taking out any bias. If you do have incomplete data sets, see if you can plug the gaps. But if you can't, just identify that and let your tools or your platforms know. And of course, reducing duplicates. But you could probably use the AI to reduce the duplicates and cleanse the data before it starts to predict from it. And so there are tools, obviously, that will enable you to do that. And then once you have those tools, what you need to be doing is throwing that data in with some really high quality prompts and see if your platforms, and we've got some examples here, will enable you to start to build some predictions. And again, these could be very, very simple, very generic kind of predictions just to get you started and warmed up in this whole idea of predictive analytics, giving you insights at scale. Remember that phrase, it's obviously the title of this talk, but it is really key. You're doing this predictive analytics to give you insights at scale. So it is about pushing these tools, whether it's Accio, Monkey Learn, RapidMiner, different tools for different services, but just have a little play with some of these and explore them and see what comes out. Now, you might find that they begin by hallucinating a little bit, as we know AI can. You might find that it doesn't quite give you what you thought you might get. but it's about learning alongside them. It's about collaborating with them. It's about going deep into your prompt quality. Always about the prompt. The tool is probably not at fault. It's probably you and your prompting. I find that all the time. Sometimes I curse at my AI and sort of think, oh, come on, I know you can do better. Then I think, of course it can do better. It's me that can do better because I haven't actually actively prompted it properly. So I didn't get deep into the conversation. So as long as you do, then there's an opportunity to get great outputs from it. And if you're working at a more enterprise level, some of the platforms that do require possibly a bit more of an investment, those initial ones are the very much the low-hanging fruit to get you started. But if you want to invest, or if you wanted some enterprise level platforms, which are probably arguably better for larger teams and those teams with some kind of AI or data support, you could be looking at Azure machine learning, you could be looking at cloud, Google Cloud Vertex AI, or Amazon SageMaker, for example. These are more corporate enterprise level platforms. But again, if you just want to get your head around how to do predictive analytics, then there are tutorials on these websites and in these platforms that can guide you in terms of the principles and the process that you're going to need to go through. So big opportunity there too. And the idea really is about building an overarching predictive capability. So, what do I mean by that? Well, what I'm thinking here is that this could feel, as I'm describing it, and I'm almost observing and reflecting on as I talk about how this could be coming across to you, is that, oh my goodness, Neil, I've got all these things I've already got in my busy working day, and you're just loading all this predictive analytics stuff onto me as well. That's what we're not trying to do here. What we're trying to do here is to embed the stuff that you find coming out of the other end of this process, the other end of this machine, into existing things that you do. So your campaign planning, your strategic planning, if you have a marketing plan, refining that marketing plan. It's not about adding something to your role. It's about refining the activities you do when you're starting to make decisions. So when you're setting KPIs, key performance indicators for your next campaign, you can use predictive forecasting that's coming out of these predictive tools to enable you to set the right KPIs. So, for example, you could forecast website traffic or lead volumes before the campaign launch. And by doing this on a predictive analytics way, you're kind of making decisions based on a likely outcome. You're not just guessing. I mean, too many of us, and I'm looking again in the mirror here as I say this, too many of us guess about a likely outcome. We think, well, that's pretty good. That campaign's good. Look, that social post is great. Yeah, I'm really confident this is going to work. And then it doesn't. I've got a few things going on at the moment where I'm disappointed in the results. And I'm thinking, how could I have done better? Well, predictive analytics is the way. I've done all these things before. It's not like I don't know what I'm doing, but I can always make improvements. So, predictive analytics allows you to work and shift marketing planning from fixed to adaptive. It enables you to put some data in, do a great prompt, use those algorithms and those AI tools to give you a sense of what is happening in the world right now that I can align with this campaign, predict what the likely outcome is, and then tune my campaign or tune my plan, maybe focus in a slightly different direction, or maybe try this channel rather than that one that I thought would be the one that works. But the predictions say no. The predictions say I'm going to do better here. And then watching and listening when you make those little improvements. And of course, what this is doing as well is this is enabling us to go beyond just us, because people are going to see you doing this magical stuff, this crystal ball that you now have that predicts what's going to happen of everything that you do. They're going to want a piece of the pie. They're going to see this, all the outputs that you're doing, all these kind of confident predictions that you're making that then come true. And they're going to say, hold on a minute, can you share how you did this? And so what you're probably going to want to do is to introduce them to the how that you're doing it. And so what we might want to be doing is creating some visual predictions and actually visualize for our stakeholders, our line manager, our clients, our wider team, maybe the management team or the board, visualizing these predictions for these stakeholders. So there are dashboards available that can help you to do this. Power BI is obviously an obvious one that's great for manipulating data, making it very visual. You might have a look at Looker Studio or Tableau. All of these work from some basic principles here, which is that it shows you comparisons of scenarios. It shows you not just raw predictions, but actionable insights. It shows you the way that the data has been interpreted to give the intelligence behind the data, or that is empowered by the data. And it's going to give you some confidence intervals. It's going to show you that, look, if we do this particular action, it's likely this is the outcome. But if we do this over here, these particular things, oh, and by the way, management team, I do need a little bit more budget, but look what's likely to happen. Statistically, this is more likely to happen. Can you imagine the confidence level with your stakeholders going up? Well, it will, because they'll be thinking, okay, this is really data driven. This is really confident. I can see you've matched A versus B or X versus Y. And well, yeah, of course, let's go for this. So this is going to get really interesting if we do this. But of course, it is, as I've said all along, and this could be one of the first challenges that they'll come back is, oh, well, yeah, but of course, the data that we've already worked with, I mean, that is actually pretty biased, isn't it? Because it's kind of, it's our old customer data. It's quite old, it's quite tired, and well, there's gaps in it, isn't there? And it probably is just biased by the way that we've used it and targeted before. So you need to be thinking about avoiding both the algorithmic bias, so the way that the algorithms are working, but of course that is now being, attended to by a lot of the platforms that we're talking about here, but also the way that you are actually targeting and talking and putting your prompts in. Because if you start to prompt in a certain way that biases towards or in favor of a particular demographic or a particular customer target or audience, then you will get biased information out. Bias is inherent in this process, but the way that we can just confidently say, okay, well, we've captured this data with consent. This particular data has been, properly gathered. We've interpreted it in the most open and honest way. We've tried in our prompting to be really authentic and try to give, the most sort of unbiased view here. So we've tried and we've really, really kind of, practiced as best we can the best practice in terms of prediction, but we know we're not infallible. We know this is not a perfect science. So just by recognizing that and having an intention, and if you look at the ICO guidance on AI and data protection, one of the themes that comes through in that, if you do some research into the risks and ethics around predictive analytics, you will see that as long as you have strong moral, ethical intention, you are on the journey to improvement. It's the organizations who don't attend to it that are in trouble. But as long as you have some standards and some policies, and by policy, I don't mean a huge, great legal document, I mean some stated framework, scenarios or questions where you say, look, this is how we're gathering data, how we're holding it, how we're using it to predict the future. We're doing our best, genuinely doing our best, and this is how and why and where. Then you are in adherence to the ethical guidelines. But of course, there will be potential pitfalls, even if you try and do that. And of course, we've got to just cover these and be aware of these because, we are opening this Pandora's box for being challenged. And, if you do take this back into your organization, then a lot of these things will be questions that the organization will want you to answer. So just being aware that they're there gives you a chance to kind of, almost just sort of set your answers in alignment before you present this. The basically predictions only work on historical data, not future changes. And that is actually the harsh reality here, because even though we're saying this is predictive analytics, it's working with clever science, clever algorithms, and it's looking at likely probability and statistical likelihood of outcome. It clearly can't see the future, even though AI promises that, oh yeah, I can look back at your campaigns from a future perspective and see. Well, it's kind of building these models to enable the likelihood, the percentage probability that it can do it, but it's not the actual reality. You've got to get to the future before it can actually see it. For now, of course. And of course, over automation without human oversight. So that's basically saying, well, I'm just going to leave my AI to it. I'm not going to keep a watch on what it's doing, is also another pitfall because you might spot as you're watching your AI agent. And if you use ChatGPT Pro, for example, you can watch the agent actually in action as it's doing its calculations. It'll show you on the screen in its own embedded browser what it is actually doing. And often in the early days, as you're starting to use your AI to build this predictive analytics framework, it's nice to know actually what it's doing under the hood. Because if you just trust these platforms without an oversight, well, it is actually quite high risk because you don't know where it's hallucinating, where it's falling short, where it's just guessing, because it will. It wants to give you a positive, practical answer. And so at times it might want to cut corners. So if you have the oversight, particularly in the early days, build that confidence, know the process it's doing, and then say, please repeat that process with these amendments that I've seen you doing. Then I've got confidence I can leave you to it and I can go off and make a coffee or go and do some other work whilst you're powering through these numbers. Those would be things that I would certainly recommend that you do because then the outputs are going to be strong. Because what it's going to want to do with you, and this is again a collaborative thing, these AI tools, these platforms that we've discussed, they are not there to kind of just do this stuff in isolation. They want to work with you to create some key performance indicators, some KPIs around these predictive analytics. So as the tool comes up with, this is what I think you should do with the next campaign. You should do this in this channel. You should tune your content like this, and you should target this particular audience. It might come up with 3 different little recommendations. And then you can go deeper into that and say, well, okay, let's get some relevant and some very timely and some achievable, so smart, basically, KPIs that will show we're making progress towards the actual output that you're predicting we're going to get to. So actually work with the AI to say, okay, this is our target. We've got these 3 things we're going to do. Work with me now to set some KPIs that are achievable, because then you've got something you can use to both benchmark the starting point, but also measure the progress. And of course, you can have things like the accuracy of its predictions versus actually what happened. Well, isn't that one a fascinating one? I'm advocating this predictive analytics and saying to you, actually, we do need to measure how accurate it was when you actually did make those changes to your campaigns that were working fine. The AI predicted that it was going to do it in a better way if you did these changes. And then you need to then be sure that actually there were improvements. And if there weren't, why didn't those improvements happen? So testing as a KPI, the accuracy of prediction versus actual is got to be, it has to be in the early days, your number one KPI. Another one might be the impact on your pipeline growth. In other words, how many people are coming through the customer journey now versus before as a result of us actually doing this predictive work and changing what we're doing? And campaign efficiency gains, things like reduced wasted spend, for example, because, you could be targeting 50 different segments or 50 different lookalike audiences and only 2 actually work. And if the campaign efficiency was that, well, actually, out of those 2, we predicted to narrow it down to 10. And in that 10, the 2 that we predicted would work the best are in that 10. Great. So there's the KPI actually showing that things are improving. And a final one could be retention rate improvement. I said about using predictive analytics to predict when your customers are likely to leave their relationship with you. That's often a really, really powerful one to start with, even rather than worrying about upfront in the sales funnel. So, a great KPI could be retention rate improvement. How did you or were you able to retain customers for slightly longer and maybe at scale as a result of predicting when they're likely to leave? That would be a great KPI. And maybe, just thinking out loud here, maybe choose one of those and go deep on it. So maybe as you start out on this journey of taking these AI outputs, making changes to your plans, your projects, or your campaigns, you choose one KPI to start with, and you get to really go deep and understand how it's working and how that impact is being made in reality. That could be a really good thing. And of course, to calculate then that return and calculate actually what's happening, you need to just use the standard ROI formula. So it's the incremental revenue from the predictions minus the cost of the predictive system. So if you're going to be, getting X amount of new revenue coming in, but you had to spend this amount on subscribing to the platform and divide that with the cost of the predictive system, you're going to get an ROI. And that's going to give you the return on the investment of your efforts here. And of course, the cost of the predictive system is the subscription to the platform. It's your time, it's the energy of others, it's the kind of things that you can't do because you're spending time reflecting and doing this, whereas you could have been doing that over there. It's all of those things need to go into the cost of doing predictive analytics. And then you get a really sound version of the overall cost of this. But my prediction, really confident prediction here, is that you will see what organizations see when they're doing this. And there, as I said right at the start, the research shows that a significant proportion of big brands are doing this now. This is their approach to marketing improvement, using AI with predictive analytics to really make these campaign and these project improvements. And if you do it, you're going to fall into the same pot as people like Netflix and Starbucks, who are using these to see significant gains in their outputs and the effectiveness and the ROI of their campaigns. There are many, many other great examples. If you just do a search on case studies for predictive analytics, you'll see many, many other great examples where this is a real thing. And if you're willing to do the hard yards, if you're willing to do that kind of data cleansing, put the data in, get to really test out some of these predictive analytics platforms, and or use ChatGPT. I'm not saying don't use your favorite one that you're probably likely using on a day-to-day basis. See what that does too. Maybe run the two in parallel, because we're not necessarily having to buy into new platforms here. You could use the existing one. A lot of AI is AI and is able to do this stuff because it's drawing on similar kinds of algorithms. So see what you can find and you'll be actually playing this game. So, what are your next steps? How can you actually take this forward? Because there's a lot to consume here. This kind of concept is quite new to you, and I know for some of you this will be. There's some simple steps really and on this roadmap to adopting predictive analytics, and it is a mindset. A lot of this is about thinking, could I predict the outcome more accurately of what's going to happen if I do X versus Y? It is a mindset. So start small with one use case. Maybe it is churn prediction, that one I said. In other words, how can I look at the data I've got about my customers and do predictive analytics to see if I can keep my customers maybe for one day, 1 week, 1 month longer? And what ROI is that going to produce for our business? Or maybe it's I can do some prediction that I get X amount of dollars or pounds more out of the customers that we've got now within the next month as a result of predictive analytics. So set some really maybe single-minded KPIs. That's your target. Then invest in data cleansing and governance. Check out your data. Your business basically thrives or falls and fails on the quality of its customer data. It does. It's one of those kind of unseen things that we kind of brush under the carpet because it's like, oh, it's only data. But once you start looking at it, the data is like gold dust in your business. And if you can really understand it, use AI and these tools to help cleanse the data, help manage it and save it and store it in a really responsible, well-governed way, and then you're good to go. Pilot with low code tools before scaling. So the ones that you can prompt easily, I've given you some low hanging fruit models there and platforms a little bit earlier in this talk. Start with those. You don't have to be investing, get some free trials in there and just plug some data in. Start to do some prompting and just kind of explore the kind of outcomes that you get and see what the outputs are. And then maybe with this one small scale use case, this could be churn prediction, but you might have something else you want to play with as a target. Start to guide it, start to prompt it in that direction and say, look, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'd like to do. Can we actually do some predictive analytics here? Can you give me some insights, please, here that will enable me to make some better decisions? And involve cross-functional teams. I'm particularly thinking here, sales, product, or service. Get others involved. Because if you can start to get maybe sales involved in this, if they understand that you're doing activities to constantly improve what you do, that every step of things you're listening, you're watching the data, and you're going to feed them so they can respond to in accordance with your changes to your campaigns and projects, then you're working collaboratively in the best interests of the customer. So again, there's a win-win-win scenario that you're developing here. Could be really exciting. And the key thing I would suggest that you do, and this is really, really important above pretty much all else, is that you're going to get distracted. You've got a day job to do. There's other stuff that you do. So build a feedback loop that refines your predictions. And what I'm saying by that is log everything you're thinking, log everything you're doing, have a little archive of this was my journey through predictive analytics. As I was trying to build insights at scale, these future predictions, this is what I did. This is what I didn't do or haven't done yet. This is what I need to do. So build a little route map, build a little kind of journey of this project that you're doing. Log everything, the ups, the downs, the challenges, the opportunities, because then you've got an archive that you can go back to. Because you possibly won't get a chance to do this in isolation, just from the start to finish and say, hey, done that project, off we go, we're going to do that with everything else. You're going to get distracted. But if you can come back and pick up where you left off, you're going to be in a really strong position to make this happen at some point in the not too distant future. And that would be my encouragement to you, is kind of think of this as an ongoing thing. The concept of predictive analytics is going to enable you to transform your data, whether you like it or not. Once you now know that this is a thing, you're going to be able to use your data to gain foresight. You're going to be able to shape your campaigns and anticipate the results from them rather than just react to what happened in retrospect. And what is not nicer than that, to have this crystal ball that says, if I do this over here, that's likely to happen. And if I do this over here, oh, that's likely to happen. And I've got the data to back it up. And that's what I'm going to prioritize. How much nicer it is to be a marketer using that lens. And by combining these tools, these accessible tools, these robust data practices, these ethical safeguards, these are all the right things to do in responsible marketing activity. You will be achieving insights at scale. And these are directly going to support both the growth and trust in your customers, but also growth and trust in you and the marketing function within your organization. It's evidence-based, it's future thinking, it's helping your stakeholders, whoever they might be and wherever they might be within your organization or outside, to actually understand the value that marketing brings and actually see some value from all perspectives. So the final reflection I'd like you to take here, as well as logging your journey, if you follow these things step by step and change and empower yourself with this stuff, is just a final little thought here, is how do you think this might elevate you personally and your role? Because to me, this is the way that marketing is going to play out. The most successful marketers going forward will be the ones who take predictive analytics and gain the insights at scale to power their decisions and their priorities into the future. And that is the thing that, with all of this topic, really excites me the most, is the fact that you can fuel and empower yourself to elevate your role and yourself personally. So I wish you every success. I hope this is going to work for you. You can go back, obviously, and rewatch, re-listen to this one and just follow this through step by step. I've tried to do it in a step-by-step manner. It is quite a complicated subject if you're first time into this. I recommend that you take a little bit of time, go back through some of these stages, play with those tools, do some great prompting, get as great a data set as you possibly can, and then start to communicate it, start to play with it, and start to see those decisions playing out. But if all else matters is, make sure that you actually monitor your journey in this kind of topic all the way through. So good luck. And I look forward to hearing from you if you get some success with this.